Your dog is sitting 3 feet away, not moving, not blinking, just staring at you while you eat. Most people call this begging. It's not. Begging is a learned behavior, a trained response your dog performs because it's worked before. What you're actually looking at, in that unbroken stare, is something much older and far more complicated than a dog wanting your food. It's a full behavioral system running in real time, built from thousands of years of evolution, and reinforced by every single meal you've ever eaten in front of them. Most owners assume there's one simple explanation. There isn't. There are at least 6 distinct biological and psychological mechanisms happening simultaneously, and understanding all of them changes not just how you see the stare, but how you should respond to it. Let's break down what's actually happening, piece by piece. Reason 1. Resource guarding in reverse, pack surveillance. Dogs descend from animals that survived by monitoring food resources within a social group. In wolf packs, access to food is directly tied to social rank, and tracking who is eating, how much, and when is a survival-relevant behavior, not an emotional one. Your dog isn't staring at you because it loves you in that moment. It's running an ancestral subroutine, tracking a food resource being consumed by a member of its social unit. This is why the stare often intensifies specifically during meals and drops off almost immediately once food is out of sight. If this were purely about affection, the behavior wouldn't be this precisely tied to the presence of food. It's tied to the resource, not the moment. Wild canines that failed to track food distribution within their group were, historically, at a survival disadvantage. That pressure didn't disappear just because your dog now sleeps on a couch and gets fed from a bag twice a day. The underlying wiring is still there, running quietly in the background of every meal you eat near your dog. Reason 2. Domestication. Rewired the eye contact itself. Here's where it gets more interesting. Wolves, even ones raised closely by humans, tend to avoid prolonged direct eye contact. In canine body language generally, sustained direct staring can function as a challenge or threat signal. But domestic dogs are different. Research on dog-human interaction has identified that mutual gaze between dogs and their owners triggers a release of oxytocin in both the dog and the human, the same bonding hormone involved in parent-infant attachment. This means the stare isn't purely tactical. Somewhere between wolf and modern dog, staring at a human stopped being a threat display and started being a bonding mechanism. So when your dog locks eyes with you at the dinner table, it's doing 2 contradictory things at once: running an ancient resource tracking instinct, while also engaging a relatively newer, domestication-era bonding behavior. Both systems are active simultaneously. That's part of why the stare feels so intense. It's not one behavior, it's 2 overlapping ones, pulling in different evolutionary directions at the exact same moment. This dual system explanation is also why the stare can feel oddly affectionate, even when it's motivated by food. Your dog isn't faking connection to manipulate you. The bonding chemistry is genuinely activating. It's just running in parallel with a much older survival instinct, not instead of it. Reason 3. Classical conditioning. You trained this without trying. This is the part most owners don't want to hear. If your dog has ever received food from you while you were eating, even once, even a single dropped piece of chicken, even an accidental scrap, you have created a conditioned association. In classical conditioning terms, your eating became a predictive cue for the possibility of food. The stare isn't random, it's a learned anticipatory response, no different in structure from Pavlov's dog salivating at a bell. The critical detail here is variable reinforcement. If you fed your dog from the table every time, the behavior would actually be easier to extinguish because the dog could learn eating equals guaranteed food, and staring wouldn't need to be sustained. It could just wait. But if you've only given in occasionally, unpredictably, that's the exact pattern behavioral psychology identifies as the most resistant to extinction. Slot machines use this same principle. Unpredictable reward schedules produce the most persistent, hardest-to-break behaviors, which is precisely why intermittent table feeding creates dogs that stare with far more intensity and duration than dogs who are fed consistently or never at all. This also explains why 2 dogs in the same household can display wildly different intensities of staring. It's not personality alone, it's individual reinforcement history. A dog that's been fed from the table 3 times in its life might stare harder than a dog fed from the table daily, simply because the unpredictability of those 3 occasions created a stronger, more persistent behavioral loop. Reason 4. Scent-driven attention, not just visual focus. Dogs process food-related information primarily through smell before sight. A dog's olfactory system is estimated to be tens of thousands of times more sensitive than a human's, with a far larger region of the brain dedicated to processing scent. When you're eating, your dog isn't just watching your hand move, it's receiving a constant, detailed scent profile of exactly what you're consuming, in real time. This matters because the stare often appears more intense with certain foods than others. Higher fat, higher protein foods, meat, cheese, anything calorically dense, tend to produce a stronger response than something like a plain vegetable. This isn't random preference. It reflects an evolutionary bias toward calorie-dense resources, which were historically more valuable and more scarce than low-calorie food sources. Your dog's attention isn't just food, it's a scent-driven calculation of value, updated continuously as the smell reaches its nose. This is also why the stare often escalates the moment you unwrap or open something, well before you've taken a single bite. The behavior isn't purely reactive to visible eating. It's triggered by scent data your dog is processing well ahead of you. Reason 5. The stare is also a communication tool. Modern research into canine cognition has shown that dogs use direct gaze deliberately to communicate with humans, in a way wolves do not. In studies where dogs and wolves are both given an unsolvable task, like retrieving food from a sealed container, wolves keep trying to solve the problem independently, while dogs tend to turn and look directly at the nearby human, seeking help. This is referred to by researchers as referential gazing, and it's considered one of the clearest behavioral differences that emerged specifically through domestication. The stare at the dinner table draws on this same mechanism. Your dog isn't only watching passively, it's actively signaling. In canine communication, sustained eye contact directed at a human, especially combined with alternating glances between your face and the food, functions as a request. It's less like silent observation and more like your dog directly asking a question, using the only communication tool it has that doesn't require words. Reason 6. Social facilitation. Eating is a group activity. There's one more layer that's often overlooked. In many social animals, including dogs, feeding is not a purely individual act. It's a group behavior with built-in social rules about proximity, timing, and turn-taking. This is sometimes called social facilitation of feeding. Your dog's presence near you while you eat isn't only about wanting your specific food. It reflects an instinct to be included in a group feeding event happening within its social unit. This explains a pattern many owners notice but rarely question. Dogs often position themselves near the table during meals, even in households that never feed table scraps at all. The stare, in these cases, isn't purely transactional. It's partly your dog fulfilling an instinct to participate in a shared feeding moment, even if it never receives anything from it. Putting it together. So when your dog stares at you while you eat, here's what's actually happening. Layered on top of itself. An ancestral instinct to monitor food resources within the social group. A domestication-era bonding mechanism, triggered by direct eye contact. A learned, conditioned response built from past reinforcement, made stronger if that reinforcement was inconsistent. A scent-driven, real-time evaluation of exactly what you're eating and how valuable it is. A deliberate communication signal your dog is using, specifically because it evolved to seek help and information from humans in a way wild canines never developed. And an underlying social instinct to participate in group feeding, regardless of whether food is ever shared. That's not begging. Begging is the surface-level label people use because it's simple. What's actually happening is 6 overlapping systems: instinct, bonding, learning, sensory processing, communication, and social participation, all activating at once, focused entirely on you for as long as that food is in front of you. If you want to reduce the behavior, the science points to one clear answer: consistency. Never feeding from the table eliminates the conditioning loop entirely. Occasionally giving in doesn't reduce the staring, It intensifies it, because you're reinforcing the exact unpredictable reward pattern that makes a behavior hardest to break. Removing the food reward element doesn't eliminate the other 5 systems, but it does remove the strongest, most trainable variable in the equation. Your dog isn't staring because it thinks you're rude for not sharing. It's running code that's been building for thousands of years, layered with everything it's learned from you personally, and you're the only variable it's actively trying to solve. Subscribe to Decoding Dogs, because your dog isn't simple, and neither is the science behind it.